Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ask Me Anything. Let me get the Instagram folks online and I'll be right with you. Let's go live. Okay. All right. I think I'm live both places. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. This is Shellye Archambeau, and this is my monthly Ask Me Anything. This is the time that I set aside to, frankly, provide availability. I try to make myself available to answer any questions or perspectives, share any advice, whatever. So this is your chance to ask me whatever might be on your mind and where I might be able to be helpful. I'm coming to you today from Tampa, Florida, and I see a lot of folks joining on Insta. So hello, hello, hello. And I also have folks online in terms of on my YouTube Live, which is where these are posted after every session. So if you want to see past sessions, feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Shellye Archambeau. Very easy to find. Okay, so how this works is I have questions that I've been asked in advance, and I'll go through the questions that have been sent to me. But if you have questions, feel free to ask them. Just put them, if you're on YouTube, put them in the chat. And if you're on Insta, bear with me because it's hard to follow everything, but I will try to get to the ones on Insta as well. So let's get started. Okay, first one. How do I transition my career from healthcare into the technology industry? Well, that's a very broad question. I'm not sure exactly what your skills are in the healthcare industry, but here's my general advice when you're trying to pivot from one place to the other. Figure out where there are connections. So, for instance, in the technology industry, you have all kinds of tech companies that provide products, services, support to healthcare companies. So, look for technology companies that over index in healthcare, ones that might provide software solutions and or technology solutions, because in that case, your experience in healthcare will actually be valued and something that they will want. And that's the easiest way to make transition. So whenever you're trying to pivot, always look for how are the two connected, and are there skills and experiences that you bring from your current role that you can bring into the new arena, and then focus on those specific targets when you're going after the next job. My other advice is keep the job you have until you find the job you want. It tends to be easier to get hired if you already have a job. Now, if it's not your choice, that's a different scenario. Or if you're in a toxic situation, no, definitely don't stay. So that's just general advice. Okay, next question. I've just finished reading your book and loved it. Thank you. That's Unapologetically Ambitious, for those that weren't aware. What advice would you give to someone who is looking to pivot in their career? Lots of pivoting going on right now. So hopefully you heard the answer to the first question, which is figure out the industry and manage. But the broader answer is if you're doing something, and it might be a job or a role, and you decided, I'm not sure if this is really what gets me excited and passionate, then it's okay to make a pivot and make a change. The easiest way to do that is to figure out what other roles and opportunities can leverage some of the skills that you've already built. So, for instance, if you happen to be in product marketing, right? But you decide product marketing is really not for you, and maybe what you're interested in is sales. Well, the experience that you have of being able to define the product, explain the product, position it within other, compare it to competition, et cetera, all those are skills that you can use in sales. So the key is to figure out what those skills are. And when you're going after the next job, make sure you're highlighting them and emphasizing them and showing how they'll help you in the new job that you're going after. The other thing is spend time talking to people who are in the arenas that you want to pivot to so that you can get more understanding about the job, the industry, et cetera, and get people's advice. And in the process of getting advice, hopefully you can then also establish some relationships and they may be helpful to you in making introductions and or opening doors. Next question. How do you decide what boards to serve on and when to move on from those boards? So here's an interesting one. There's all different kinds of boards. There's nonprofit boards, there's for-profit boards, there's private, there's public, right, et cetera. What I'll tell you is think of a board as a job commitment. Now, it may not be full-time, But when you make a commitment to join a board, you're taking a fiduciary responsibility to look out for all of the stakeholders involved in that organization. So don't take it lightly. Some people are asked to join a nonprofit board and they just say yes. Well, make sure you do your diligence. Understand about the organization. Are they in good financial stead? Do they have a good reputation? Who else is on the board? Do you respect those people? Right? So make sure you do the work to understand what you're joining. And also make sure that you actually have a passion about it. Because if the board is of an organization that frankly you don't care much about, odds are really high that you're not going to be the best board member because you're not going to be as engaged. So look for organizations that actually are doing things that you personally have interest in, that you have some passion about. Because what I find when you're doing things that you have passion about, you tend to bring your best self when you show up. You also tend to be more curious, more interested, and therefore more engaged. Next one. Oh, when do you decide to move on from those boards? I didn't answer the second part. Well, I don't believe you should serve on one board forever, right? I do believe that once you feel that you've made a contribution, that you've given most of what you have to offer, and you're at a point where maybe you're not learning anything new, or you don't feel as challenged or as engaged as before, then it's time to step aside and let someone else come in who can bring some fresh views, fresh energy, and fresh thoughts. Next, how do you handle conflict of interest when interacting with your network? And that could be, for example, another board member represents a company whose values you don't align with yours. It's interesting when you think about conflict, there's different kinds of conflicts. You talked about general conflicts of interest. So one is you could have a conflict of interest where maybe you're involved in an organization and there's a decision to be made about doing business with another entity, but you have a relationship with that other entity. When that happens, you have to recuse yourself. You have to acknowledge that, hey, I have a vested interest or a relationship. And so to make sure that nothing looks improprietary, I'm going to actually step aside and not participate in the discussion, the decision, the debate, whatever it might be. So first, recuse yourself. Now, if it has to do, the example given was, for example, another board member represents a company whose values don't align with yours. That's kind of two steps. So you didn't say the person has values that you don't align. You just say the person's on a board of a company whose values you don't align. If it's something that you feel super strongly about, then it's probably not a place that you want to engage in if you feel that you will be at conflict. But if it's just the company, not the person, right? Then remember, when everyone shows up to work for an organization or on the board, you're actually accepting the values of the organization that you're currently representing. You need to make decisions based upon, yes, your values, but frankly, the company's values outweigh that more than anything because that's your job, is to represent them. Now, your job is also to help shape those values. So my advice, if you feel uncomfortable, then don't engage. And if you're already part of an organization and you're starting to feel uncomfortable with maybe the company or organization's values, then you need to raise it and make it an actual discussion and give the organization a chance to adapt, modify before you just decide to step out. Okay, next. I read your book and find it very inspiring. Thank you. Recently, my manager asked me to step into a leadership position. I've agreed, even though I'm nervous and think I might fail. Oh my goodness. So first of all, most people feel that way when they get ready to take on a new assignment, especially a new leadership level. And I felt the same way. My very first management job, it was in sales. And I remember I was so excited. It's like, yes, I finally got the job. And then it's like, oh my God, I got the job. But can I do this? So how you feel is very, very normal. Now, things that you can do to help quell those fears and, act more confident. What I find is gathering a lot of facts and information about the situation really helped me feel settled. So frankly, I got books on being a first-time manager. I got books on what to do in the first, 90 days. So I talked to people who were managers to ask them what advice they had for me. And I also took the opportunity for my new group I literally said, listen, I'm new at this, right? I showed what I would call both vulnerability, right? And got some empathy to say, hey, listen, I'm new at this, but my job is to help all of you be as successful as possible. That's my number one job. So let me know how I can be helpful as we, right, building out da 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 da. So the key is you're not alone. You've got a team. You're all part of the team together. You each have different roles. And definitely get advice, support from the outside because it'll help you feel a bit more confident. Next, I was not very strategic about my career and thought if I worked hard and then some, I would get promoted. Instead, I've basically been pushed around sideways, mostly as a subject matter expert to fix broken things. I decided to jump out of this job after 13 years, attaining only a mid-senior manager level. How do I pivot successfully from this position to what I believe is my calling at a more senior level? And how do I increase my chance of someone taking a chance on me? All right, so first of all, realize that as you move up in your career, expectations of the role change. So when you're a senior manager, for instance, you're really valued on, are you able to get the job done? Can you get it done both yourself, but also through your team? Are you able to lead a team? Are you able to hire and develop people? And can you indeed execute on the strategy that the company has? But as you move into executive roles and senior executive roles, what they're really looking for, in addition to the job description, is people who can actually start contributing to strategy, people who will actually bring networks beyond what's in the company, right, to bear on decisions, on thoughts, on ideas, etc. So as you move up in the organization, you need to take a much more holistic view of not just your job and your role, but also the industry, also what's happening, right, in your overall profession, and bring all of that to bear. And they're looking for people who have a great talent for spotting high talented people, for recruiting talented people, promoting them, etc. So a lot more is expected. So if you're trying to jump from the senior manager into that next level, it's number one, letting people know that's what you aspire to do. And then asking for their feedback. For instance, one of the things that I used to say is, one day I aspire to be, and then fill it in. I was trying to be a CEO, right? What skills, what experiences do you think I need in order to be able to successfully compete for that kind of job in the future? So do the same thing. If you're aspiring to a higher level, let people know that and then ask their advice on what you need to show, demonstrate, experience, etc., so that you can go fill in any gaps that you might have. And adopt mentors and supporters. And if you read Unapologetically Ambitious, I tell you how to do that. Because very few of us, if anyone, gets much done all by ourselves. We all need help. So make sure you're finding those people around you to help and support you as you're building that career. Next question. Would you still recommend young people to start their careers in sales? It clearly worked for you. Yes, and I definitely talk about it in Unapologetically Ambitious about starting out in sales. And I do believe that sales is a great first job for everyone. That doesn't mean it's your career. The reason I feel a job in sales is a great job is because you learn so many skills that you will use for the rest of your career, no matter what job you have. You learn how to ask for what you want. You learn how to negotiate. You learn how to identify where the power is in the room. You learn how to communicate. You learn how to present your case. You learn that no is not a no. It just means not now. It means something's not right, so that you can figure out how to make it right. All those things you learn in sales. And guess what? All those skills I still use to this day. So yes, I still believe sales is a great first job. And by the way, whether it's the first job out of college or you can take a sales job while you're going to school. I mean, my first job, that can happen anytime. But I do believe it sets you up for a good path if you aspire to senior leadership. Next question. I find that I'm the one asked to do administrative things, even though we're all engineers on my team. I'm asked to do things like take notes, organize a meeting or event, etc. Okay, so I call this being asked to be the housewife in the office. All right. And unfortunately, there are biases that the same people, mainly women, get asked to do these things or volunteer for these things. Here's how I approach it. If I'm asked to take notes, fine, I'll do it the first time. The second time, oh, they'll say things like, oh, Shellye, you did such a great job. Can you take notes again? And my answer is, actually, thanks for the compliment, but I think someone else needs the practice or the opportunity or whatever it is. So you're basically saying, thank you, but no thanks. Um, and if they come back and say, well, like, well, but why won't you do it? You can just say, honestly, taking notes does distract a bit from the meeting itself. And I want to be fully engaged. So I think it's better if we all take turns doing it so we all get a chance to contribute equally. Right? So just stand up for yourself. All nice, all polite, but don't automatically just take on those kinds of roles. And I find that when you actually say something like that, they realize that, oh, I guess we're asking the same person all the time. So that's how I handle it. All right, let me check in and see if we've got questions in the chat. And I do. Oh, woman from Italy. Looking forward to another. Well, thank you very much, Chiara. It's very nice to see you. I have some highs. I have some waves on Insta. Let me go back and see if there's any other questions before I call this to a conclusion. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. I really appreciate it. I see all the folks here on Insta doing a few little waves. Last chance? Okay. Well, listen, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate your taking the time. I do these Ask Me Anything sessions once a month, and I always post them on LinkedIn, Insta, etc. when I'm going to have them. But if you register on my YouTube channel, Shellye Archambeau, then you'll actually get notified when the next one is. So spread the word, and if I can ever be helpful, just tune in, ask a question, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.